Warning. The following video contains strong language that some viewers may find offensive or disturbing.
What are some common facts that people believe to be true even if the existing evidence states the contrary? Camels don't use their humps to store water. They use them to store fat reserves. Because storing fat reserves around the body like humans would keep them too warm. So they have it all in one spot. If the police arrest you and do not read your rights, the case will automatically be thrown out. That only invalidates any interrogation they conduct. To piggyback, that police have to read you your Miranda rights. Miranda only comes into play for questioning. If they don't want to ask you any questions, they don't have to read Miranda. Worms come out when it rains because they are drowning in their holes. No, not really. They mostly come out because when it rains heavily, they are able to survive on the surface for much longer and move around, finding new areas to feed and more worms to breed with. A few people still believe that opening windows before a tornado to even the pressure will save their house from damage. Some also still believe trailer parks attract tornadoes and that random sacred landmarks can protect cities from tornadoes. The first part of that does have some merit though. Opening up all your windows will effectively reduce the total force being exerted on the walls from the outside winds, since some of that airflow is allowed to pass through the wall instead of acting upon it. However, considering how strong the winds are in a tornado and how small most windows are, the effect may as well be irrelevant. Opening your windows to reduce the damage from the winds of a tornado is probably about as effective as planting shrubbery to reduce the damage from an oncoming avalanche. That Einstein was a bad student, and was bad at math. It's just not true. He got average high marks, and was really just disdainful of the structure of school. And he was good at math. Physics is like 90% math. I get why people share it. It's to make struggling students feel better about themselves. But can't we tell them about something else instead of lying? Cutting your facial hair makes it grow in thicker. I had a full-on argument with an individual who firmly believed that genetics played no possible role in hair growth whatsoever. I have never been more perplexed or angry in my entire life. Sincerely, bald at 25. I'm a master esthetician and I've studied hair growth. And I can confirm, shaving, waxing, plucking does not make more hair grow thicker nor longer. The reason for this misconception is when you shave, it makes the tip of the hair blunt, so when that protrudes from the follicle, it appears to be thicker. The only change in hair texture, thickness, length, etc. occurs in the papillae, hair root, which is completely determined by hormones. Edit. Hey y'all. As much as I love talking about my field, I gotta turn in. But consider contacting a local esthetician for your skin, hair questions. The most violent arguments I've had have been convincing patients with a viral cold that they don't need antibiotics. I remember a documentary a few years back about a GP's practice here in the UK, basically filming patients, with their permission, to show a day-to-day. They literally had people come in and answer, "What's the matter today?" with, "I need some antibiotics." They didn't even elaborate on why. Just, "I need some antibiotics." People still think an undercover cop has to tell you they're a cop. How does that even make sense? Months of preparations ruined on the first day because someone happened to ask the magic question. Cops are allowed to lie to you and they will pretend to be your friend to get what they need from you. Side note, even if you're innocent of a crime, the first words from your mouth should be, "I want a lawyer." And you don't provide any information until you have one. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. Single quote. Vikings never actually drank from skulls of enemies. This was based on a mistranslation of Old Norse poetry in which they refer to drinking from horns. That 30 used to be considered ancient back when the average lifespan was 25 or whatever. The average is offset by a huge number of child deaths. 30 was never ancient. Even hunter-gatherer societies had people routinely living into their 60s. Piggybacking off this, that girls were married off in their early teens in the medieval period. This is based off the nobility and royalty. who did marry off their young daughters as a political tool to secure alliances. However, even when the young royals were only 12 or 13 when wed, they were often married by proxy and married in name only. The married couple were often kept separate until either the girl came of age, aka got her first period to produce children, or were just deemed old enough to start living together in the same castle, which wasn't until around 17 to 20 years old. The vast majority, like the peasantry, weren't married until their early 20s. Women in the peasantry often did have a choice on who they got to marry, unlike their noble components who were used as bargaining chips. Edit to add, as a woman who got her first period at 13, I know that the average age a girl gets her period today is around 11 to 13 years old. Keyword being today. I am talking about the medieval times, which are roughly between 1000 to 1300s, between 1000 to 800 years ago. As many others have already pointed out, the average age for a girl to get her first period would have been closer to around 15 to 16 years of age. Another edit to add, I am not an expert on this, nor have I paid as much attention to this as I have on medieval marriage age. But it is generally believed access to better nutrition from medieval Europe to today's Europe is cowing the average age of girls menstruating to lower. There is also the belief that the artificial hormones and additives in food are messing with hormones, as well as artificial fragrances and dyes, etc., not just for girls, boys as well. However, I haven't seen this belief outside of Dr. Oz, so you can guess it isn't as credible as the nutrition belief. A person drowning is not likely to be flailing wildly and yelling like in the movies. Drowning can often happen with mostly silence, especially with kids. Read up on the signs. It might save a life. I was drowning and lost consciousness when I was 5. I was told I barely made a sound. I went under, sucked in lungs full of water when I tried to cry out in surprise and blacked out. If it wasn't for my dad's instincts and quick action, I'd be dead. Lightning never strikes twice in the same place. In fact, it does. And frequently. You don't want to be there when it happens. A lot of people think they can burn belly fat by doing crunches or slim their arms down by doing push-ups. But targeted fat loss isn't possible, and there's no evidence to suggest it is. True. One analogy for this I heard involves a pool of water and a bucket. If you take water out of the pool with the bucket, burning calories to burn fat. Even if you scoop in one place, it will remove water evenly across the pool. Some people's genetics store fat more in certain parts of the body, and you can't spot reduce body fat. Cracking your knuckles too often will give you arthritis. Nope. No conclusive study has ever backed this up. It just releases the gas from the synovial fluid in your joints, which is neither good nor bad. Alpha theory in dog training. The researcher that originally described the dominance theory was watching captive wolves at a zoo, a pack that was artificially created from unrelated specimens. The hierarchy in this curated collection was determined through fights and struggles for dominance, and this dynamic was then applied to domestic dogs and how they view themselves in relation to humans. This drove the "dominate your dog" style of training popular with Cesar Millan and his acolytes. When the scientific community was able to observe a wild wolf pack, however, they discovered that wild packs are family units and operate much the same way, with a parental breeding pair at the top and their younger offspring forming the pack, sometimes several litters at a time. As the pups grow older, they break off and form their own packs. The researcher that dismantled the theory, David Meck, described it thusly: attempting to apply information about the behavior of assemblages of unrelated captive wolves to the familial structure of natural packs has resulted in considerable confusion. Such an approach is analogous to trying to draw inferences about human family dynamics by studying humans in refugee camps. Quote, I scrolled fairly far down and did not see what came to mind for me. A lot of people think blood is blue inside of the body, and that it only appears red because of the oxygen or something in the air. I tried to explain this to a past coworker, who was a former nurse, and she wasn't having any of it. Turns out a lot of otherwise smart people believe that with no evidence. But blood is always red, just darker at some points of circulation in the body. That if you touch a baby animal, like a bird or rabbit, its mother will neglect it and it will die. That is a myth. It was just a way for parents to get their kids to leave baby animals alone. Yeah, a few weeks ago, a baby bird fell out of its nest in our backyard. It survived and my dad was going to put it out of its misery until I told him that this myth wasn't true. We put it in a cardboard box on the table closest to its tree with some food and water and just left it alone. Its parents found it the next day and were bringing it food. And within a couple of days, it was gone. Chicken is cooked when it is no longer pink and the juices run clear. In fact, it's cooked when it hits 75°C, 165°F, and that's it. What it looks like depends on the cut. Chicken breast often has significant pink in it when it hits the temperature. Which is why most people complain about dry, boring chicken, because they overcook it. On the flip side, wings can look cooked when they aren't, which is why they're a major source of food poisoning. The most important thing I learned working in a commercial kitchen. Most people only use 10% of their brain's capacity thing. Utterly ridiculous. The brain is a giant, metabolically expensive, staggeringly complex structure. Why on earth would our bodies grow something like that and then not use it? Edit. A lot of people in this thread have some very strange ideas about brains. Yes, if all your neurons fired at once, that would be extremely bad. The thing to bear in mind is that different areas and structures of the brain are highly specialized for certain tasks. Talking about an overall brain capacity is misleading. There are no unused areas of the brain. That 12-step programs get addicts clean. The truth is that their efficacy hovers at approximately 5%. That's exactly the same as quitting cold turkey. There's plenty of researched and scientifically tested methods that work better. It's just that the AA model of always an addict. Nothing else works is so ubiquitous in American and to an extent other countries' culture that most people, including a lot of addicts, think that's all there is. Edit. As much as I hate award speech edits, I'm making this one exception. If you need help, and you don't want that help to include 12-step programs, there is help out there. Your mileage may vary based on your insurance status. And we need to put an end to that. Everyone should be entitled to dignified, comprehensive medical care, and that includes addiction. If you aren't sure what to do, feel free to PM me. Whether it's tonight or next week or next month. I've been there. I was an addict for 12 years. I don't work in the rehab industry, but I've been in it enough times to know what's out there. And sometimes you just need to write it out for another human being that understands. And that's okay too. Edit 2. I will reply to the rest of your messages tomorrow. I am not ignoring you. I promise. I'm old and it's past my bedtime and I'm realizing I simply can't get to them all tonight. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button. See you next time.